You don't see too many videos about how to do machine embroidery on jeans, and I think that's because it's typically been a tedious process to open up the leg of the jeans and sew it back together later. But you can do many neat things with jeans, from embroidery designs to patches to quilted areas, whatever you want. In this video, I'm going to show you how to embroider jeans on any embroidery machine by opening up the pant leg, and I've got a few tricks up my sleeve on that, or maybe tricks up my pant leg. I don't know, corny joke. But I'll also show you a shortcut with a magnetic hoop that can eliminate having to open up those jeans. Plus, I'll talk about which stabilizers, needles, and designs you can choose for embroidering on your jeans. This would also work with pants and slacks too. Hey folks, I'm Lucy at Ballyhoo Creations, and I'm creating a series of videos for different machine embroidery projects, and this here video is all about jeans. Whether you have a single needle or a multi-needle machine, I'll show you how to stitch on your pants or jean legs to create your own custom fashion statement. And rather than me showing you one way to do jeans, I'll teach you how to consider your designs and your hoops so you can learn to figure these things out for yourself. When you're stitching on regular denim, you can use any stabilizer, really, cutaway, tearaway, mesh, but if your jeans are stretchy with spandex in them, as many women's jeans are these days, then you should use a cutaway stabilizer just like with any other kind of stretchy fabric. And honestly, I almost always use a medium cutaway stabilizer under denim jeans because denim can still stretch along the bias or the diagonal of the fabric. So I feel like I get a better stitch out with the cutaway on especially the thinner denim fabrics, but I use it for pretty much everything. Feel free to experiment with what you have. Denim is typically heavy enough to handle a lot of threads on top of it, so you can do some dense designs with a lot of fills in them. As far as which needle to use, I just use my plain old 7511 embroidery needle for all the projects in this video. If you're getting skip stitches on a stretchy jean, you can switch to a ballpoint needle, and that should help. If you're breaking needles, you should definitely move up to a thicker needle like a 90/14, especially if you're going to stitch over thick seams in your jeans. But most of the time, just a fresh 7511 embroidery needle will work just fine. For your design choices, you can use most types of embroidery designs. Heavy fills, open filigree designs, patches, applique. You have a billion choices as long as it fits in your hoop. So there are not a lot of restrictions when choosing designs on jeans like there are with some other projects. Let's talk about the different hoops. I'm going to go into detail. I've got a whole bunch of hoops stacked up here, and I'm going to show you each of these different methods. The easiest one is if you have a multi-needle and you have the magnetic Mighty hoops that are for pants and sleeves. Mighty Hoops sent me this recently because I requested it for pants, and I'm so happy with this. So I'm going to demonstrate this first. This is the easy method, but this will not work for you if you have a single needle machine. This won't work. You have to have a multi-needle for this one, and also you have to have the Mighty hoop. Now, if you don't have the Mighty hoop, but you do have a multi-needle, you still have the option of putting a small hoop up inside the jean leg, like, just demonstrate real quickly. It would be something like this, and you could fit the free arm up inside the leg, and you would be able to go ahead and embroider your jeans here. You don't have to open up the jeans. You could even do it on the side, but you're limited to pretty much the 4x4, the smaller hoops with that, because when you move up into, for example, your 5x7, jean legs typically are not going to be wide enough to go up inside your pant leg and have room for the free arm. So that's not going to work for us. Only the small multi-needle hoop is going to work. If you have a fast frame or Durkee easy frame, something like that, you can get a little bit further, but still not as great as what the Mighty hoop can do. There are also cylinder hoops to fit the Brother and Baby Lock multi-needle machines, and those work too, but those cost $1,000, and they are more cumbersome to use, and they have a much smaller embroidery field, like 3.5 by 3 inches, whereas the Mighty hoop, it only cost around $150 instead of $1,000, and it gives you the 3.75 by 8 inches. So I feel like it's a no-brainer. Then you have to go ahead and open up the side of your jean, and I will, there's going to be a chapter on how you actually can open up the jeans, but once you get that side seam undone, like I'll show you, then you just have a flat piece of fabric and you can do whatever you want. The one problem with this is that you're probably only going to be able to open up the outside edge of the jeans, not the inside. And so being able to do a design that goes up the outside of the pant leg is not really an option if you have to open it up. You could take off the inside seam, but it's going to be harder to put it back on. You're going to lose some of the area. This is a very difficult seam for most people to redo. So it's just something to consider. If you have to open up the jean, it's probably the outside, and that kind of limits your design choices. But once you get it opened up, you can use whatever size hoop you want. Just go ahead and hoop your fabric, and I will get to that method on how to open the jeans and then how to hoop it and stitch it out on a single needle as well. Just check the timeline down at the bottom here somewhere. There's going to be a timeline on the video, and you can skip around to the different chapters you want to watch. Let me show you how easy it is to use these mighty hoops for jeans without having to open anything up. So you take it apart, and the thing about the mighty hoop for this particular configuration is you've got this, it looks like a bottle. You got the bottle neck here and then the base down here. You see how that kind of looks? And this needs to fit under your embroidery arm on your multi-needle. So this needs to go. I actually put a little sticker with arrows. If you can see, I did that myself, but this part needs to go towards the back of the machine. That is important. If you turn it around the other way, it won't fit on your machine, so you'll know. And this, same thing with this. So I've got, again, I just printed a little sticker and put an arrow, and it's going to go like that. And you have to remember that. And it also, you can get these little stabilizer holders, which I think these are fabulous. You just put it on top of the magnetic base like that. See how that just kind of fits like that? And now I have to remember, this is important, I have to remember which way I'm going to put this on my machine. And for this particular pair of jeans, I want to put something around the knee area, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I think like I could even fold it in half. I'm going to have a little bit easier time if I do it on the top half. If I were a little bit lower down, I would just come up through the bottom of the leg. You can go from either direction, just go whichever is shorter. So if you're up on the top part of the jeans, go up from the waistline for your free arm, and then if you're putting something lower down, you know, come up through the leg. But I'm going to go right in the middle, so I have to decide which way do I want it, and I think I'm going to go in this direction. So I just put, again, that area, that fatter side needs to go towards where I'm going to put it on my machine. So I can just put that in there. You could go up from the leg or from the waist. It doesn't really matter. Both work. I'm just going to put that there. I can feel my clip came off. I don't have enough room to do this. That's my problem. And then again, the flat part is what is going to go next to the machine. This part goes away. So just slap it on there. And now I've got a stabilized pair of jeans. You have to take the stabilizer holder off. And if you don't, it won't fit on your machine. So you'll know. If it's not on there properly, you'll know because it won't click into place on your machine. But that is nicely hooped, nice and tight. And to get it on the machine, all right, I'm going to try to demonstrate this and not get in the way of the camera here. You just go ahead and feed that onto your free arm. Be careful, the hoop is magnetic, so it might kind of try to stick. Go ahead and get that, and then pull your jeans. Make sure that they're not getting stuck underneath the arm. You might even have to pull your jeans on top. Sometimes I put them on top of the hoop and then remove that in a minute. And now I've got it clicked onto both sides here. Make sure that everything clicks into place like you normally would. And you also can check to make sure, you know, put your hand up through there, make sure that there's nothing like weird sticking, everything feels great under there. And then you just go ahead and pull your jeans out of the stitch field. And then it's very important when you're doing anything with a non-factory hoop, you want to go ahead and trace your design to make sure that you're not going to hit the edges. So I'm looking at my little laser there and making sure that it's not hitting the edge. Now with these long skinny hoops, This is a 9-inch hoop, and I only have an 8x12 sewing field, so it can't hit like the vertical. We're going to be fine there. But the sides here, the machine thinks that this is a 12-inch hoop on here. It thinks that it's got the whole 12 inches. So it will definitely try to stitch out here, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure your design fits. That's extremely important with any non-factory hoop. There is a link in the description box to this mighty hoop, and you can use my coupon code to get free shipping. Give you a full disclaimer here. Mighty Hoop sent me this hoop to make a video with, and the link is an affiliate link, so I will make a little bit of money if you buy from my link. I always want to be totally upfront and transparent about that. But here's the funny story about this hoop. I was actually going to buy this myself. I had it in my shopping cart, and I thought, you know, I wonder if I email them if they'll send me one to do a product review on. And then I was lazy. I didn't contact them. And then seriously, 1 week later, they emailed me, and they had seen my sweatshirt video, and they were like, hey, we want to send you a hooping station. I was like, oh, I really don't have room for a hooping station, but those skinny hoops for pants, hey. So they sent me this one. They also sent me a sleeve one. I'll be doing a video in the future about that. So, okay, that's enough about that. Thank you for letting me just gush on and on about this new hoop that I had that I really like. I have a pair of jeans here, and this one I need to open up the leg because I'm going to do it on a machine where I'm going to have to open the leg. And the way that you do that is, obviously I have the flat fell seam in the center, so I don't want to mess with that seam. It's going to be too hard to redo that. But the outside seam here is just a regular serged seam on the inside. So what we need to do is we need to unpick the seam for the hem, and then we'll undo this seam here. And you either need a seam ripper or small scissors. I actually will typically use both. Anything, you want your scissors to have a little sharp. They need to be sharp at the tip. But just, you have to kind of work at it and really get in there. Let me get this close up. And just kind of work around until you can undo as many of these stitches as possible. Be careful with your sharp seam ripper. And you don't need to undo the entire hem, you just need to do the hem here at the outside seam. That's a little tip for you. Don't mess with the whole thing, just do this part here. And I'm not going to show this because this isn't really a sewing channel, but you are going to have to redo this when you're done. And you would just put this on your sewing machine and sew that seam back up with your regular, if you have a serger, definitely use it, but a regular sewing machine here, and then zigzag over the edge right there, and then that will keep your jeans from unraveling. And then go ahead and fold this part back up again, and just do, try to match the thread if you can, and just sew that along that seam right there. If people are down on the ground looking that closely at the hem of your jeans, tell them to go home. They're too drunk. They shouldn't be on the floor anyway. So don't worry about it too much. See that? This is what I'm trying to get to, just on either side of this, so that I can get this center seam undone. If your denim is really old, it's possible that the seam ripper might actually cut the denim instead of cutting the seam. And just try to be careful and don't let that happen. But there are other options I'll show you in case that does happen. Now I finally got the bottom hem. I've got that separated. And the rest of it tends to go a little more easily on most jeans. Sometimes you'll get a tricky pair, but just use that seam ripper. And be careful that you don't get overzealous. Only do a few stitches at a time because it's very easy to accidentally, like I said, rip the jeans instead of the seam. And we're not done because there's a serge. There's a serged edge inside there too, so we just have to go and cut all of those stitches as well. These are actually kind of far apart. It's not that hard. Just go ahead and get that serger stitch out of the way too, and then you can start really pulling it apart. And you just go as far as you need to wherever you want your design. If you want your design like up around the knee, you need to go ahead and open it up that far. If you just want something lower down around the cuff down here, then, you know, take it to wherever you need it so that you can flatten it out. Another option that I will tell you, if you do want something at the knee, and you don't need to undo this part down here, you don't need to undo the hem, you can just open up the side of the leg if you can get it flat enough to get it hooped. So that's an option. If you want to do something here in the middle, just consider opening up the side seam in an area, and then you don't have to mess with the hem and put it back together later. And I finally got this opened all the way up to, gosh, it's pretty far past the knee, and you'll have a bunch of threads, so just cut those all out of the way. You don't want to be stitching with these threads in the way. They could get into your embroidery, so just make sure you clean up all of the loose threads, especially from the serger. Just get all of that out of the way as much as you can. I mean, you don't have to get every last one, but get as many as you can. Because, like I said, you don't want those stray threads to get stuck under your embroidery and make it look bad. You could also just cut this off. If your jeans are too long, just go ahead and cut that off and then put any kind of hem that you want on the bottom. That works too. And actually another thing that you can do, because I'm just now remembering these particular jeans are pretty tight on me, and I actually wanted to make them wider. When I put these back together, I can put a strip of fabric here instead, and that will widen them and make them more comfortable to wear. I'm just going to use a regular 4x4 hoop. Anybody could do this with their embroidery machine, and I'm going to have a little design here in the center of the knee. You could float this by just hooping your stabilizer, and that's where it would be lined up right in the center, and then you could go ahead and use an adhesive spray to stick that down. There's different ways you could stick it down and go ahead and float this. I am going to hoop these jeans. The problem with jeans, though, is, remember, we have a really thick seam here, and I can feel the edge of my hoop over here. So that's not going to be easy to hoop. I'm going to have to try to get it. I might have to go a little off center just to get the edge of the hoop right here on the edge of the seam of the jeans. It's not going to be the easiest thing, but let's try it. I'm definitely going to have to loosen my hoop quite a bit. And what I did in previous videos, I'm going to do the same trick again. I'm going to actually tape my hoop on the front. This is the inner ring of the hoop, and I'm going to line up my crosshairs and use some kind of really sticky tape. I do like the 3M Transport tape. You don't have to use this. You could use a painter's tape, a masking tape, something like that is fine too. This is going to hold this hoop in the placement that I want it while I put the bottom on. Now this hoop is stuck to the fabric. Actually, I stuck it to the table too. That's not what we want. So it's going to stay where it needs to be. Put my stabilizer over the big ring and just kind of work that in until you get it. You ever have those times when you're like, this can't possibly be right because it's not working? There we go. Now remove the tape. You don't want to stitch over these tapes. They're super sticky and it'll gum up your needle. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and put it on the machine and stitch out the design, and there's nothing special about this. When you're putting your hoop onto your machine, the jeans might be a little thick, and it might be hard to get the hoop on, so remember, you can always raise your presser foot. Whatever your lever is, just push up on it, get that foot up high, and then put your hoop on. And then just get the jeans up and out of the way as best as you can. Make sure that there's nothing underneath your hoop. I'm just going to roll this up. You could also hoop it in the opposite direction so that the fabric would be on the other side and less of an issue. Okay, so everything's out of the way. My hoop is free and clear. We're all good to go. And now for a little bit of show and tell. I did 3 different jeans in the making of this video, and this one here you saw where I did the patches on the knees. I would model these for you, but my camera's not really set up to show you when I'm wearing these, so I'm just going to hold them up. And these are just patches. These are scraps of fabric, and then there's a stitch that you can hardly even see it. There it is. And that stitch just holds all those little scraps of fabric down together, and I just patched the knees on both of these. And on this particular pair, that was the one where I cut open the side seam of the jean and I inserted a little strip of fabric along the edge. And now, instead of being too tight, these jeans are actually baggy and I have to put a belt on to wear these. But so that's what those look like. And then this is just something, you know, I have these gnomes that I make, and I've been playing around with an applique design. Where is he? Here he is. So I just appliqued that on there, and it's still a work in progress. I'm not really selling that design yet, but then here's another idea for you, just to give you some jumping off points. Those are just little holes in the jeans. So the way that this is done, let me show you. You can do anything like this, just a little peekaboo. Here's how easy this was to do. So I hooped the jean, and I used the Mighty Hoop for this, but you could open them up as well. And what I did was I didn't use stabilizer at all. I just put the jean in the hoop, and then I used the shapes that are automatically on my machine. You know, your design library sometimes has just shapes. So I picked a shape, and I just did one of these stitch lines, okay? Then I cut out the jeans, made a little hole there, and I put a piece of faux fur from under the back side, so it's underneath there. And then I changed the size of that shape, and I made it bigger and stitched it again so it caught the edge of the fur, and it stitched that fur to the jean. And then I just played around with different sizes of those lines, so I've got like 4 or 5 on there. And then the fur just peeks out. And you could go ahead and embroider like an eyeball. I'm definitely going to do that. Put an eyeball in there, maybe a little hand coming out. I just did just a little circle of fabric, and you gather around the edges, stitch it up, and now I've got a little gnome nose poking out. So just something to consider. And then this pair, I did a lot of hoopings on this. Again, I used that Mighty Hoop, magnetic hoop, and did all of these patches. And these are Wizard of Oz jeans. So you can see I have a fabric print that has some Wizard of Oz on there. And then there's like the scarecrow is down at the bottom down there. The lion is on this leg. And then somewhere we've got the Tin Man. He's up here. And these jeans, also I did a reverse applique here on the back side. These are my favorite jeans. They're so comfortable, so worn, and so soft. But I stopped wearing them because there was a hole in the back pocket. And of course I didn't know that until I had gone to the grocery store, came home, and then realized I had just flashed everybody in Aldi that day. Sorry, anybody who was at Aldi that day. But so now I've done a reverse applique with the fabric underneath there. You can kind of see the zigzag stitch line that's holding that fabric in place, and then just added some raw edge patches. And I love this kind of style. This might not be your style, but let me tell you, people pay hundreds of dollars for jeans like this. It's got that whole like magnolia pearl is a good inspiration for this. TRACI Myers is another person who has YouTube videos on how to do patch jeans. So all of that can be done with your embroidery machine. And then, of course, whatever embroidery design that you want. I'm not real big on like putting little characters and stuff, but the Wizard of Oz ones, loved it. So that's just 3 different pairs to give you an example, like a starting off point. You can patch, you can applique, you can do designs, you can do like flowers coming all the way up your leg. Whatever you want, you do you. Let's just recap everything I covered. So we talked about how to analyze your jean project to figure out the best hooping for single or multi-needle machines. And you saw me use the Mighty Hoop on the multi-needle for a quick hooping. You also watched me open up the side seam on my jeans so I could stitch it on a single needle. And the same would apply to larger hoops on multi-needles or single needle, either way. You can use any stabilizer, and your needle choice will depend on your machine and your jeans, but most of the time you can stick with your 7511 embroidery needle, unless you're getting skip stitches or broken needles. I hope you enjoyed the different styles I showed you, and now you have like a jumping off point to think up your own unique design ideas for your pants and jeans.